Absorb, do, connect. The absorb, do, connect activity cycle or activity structure was created by William Horton around 2011, or in a book that he published in 2011. There might have been an earlier edition as well, called E-Learning by Design. Despite its age, it has some good information in it, and if you run across it, I recommend it to you. But in this activity, or in this presentation, we're going to talk about the absorb, do, connect model that he created and provided in that book. The absorb, do, connect model attempts to encapsulate or capture three important parts of a learning activity that, if you think about it, is a repeatable, a generalizable, repeatable activity or learning structure that you can use over and over again as a way to design online learning and create effective learning for students in an online learning environment. So let's go through each of these. Absorb is where the topic is introduced and information is provided. Key here is that in the absorb section of this activity cycle, students have access to information, they're given information, they're asked to absorb it, but they're not yet really creating meaning with this new information. They're sponges, they're accepting information, and they haven't yet been guided towards using this information. The next thing that's in this activity structure that Horton calls for, or one of the other things he calls for, is the do. And this is where information is applied. Students are allowed to practice skills. They combine new information or new skills with their prior learning. And then next is connect. This is where students make links between their new knowledge or skills and the real world. Reflection here. Reflection is a really important way to raise satisfaction in this way, and it's also a way to help cement learning. Now, it should be noted that you don't have to do them in this order. Absorb, do, connect is very flexible. You can create them, you can merge them in some cases, or you can do them in different orders depending on how you like to structure your learning environments. Now I'd like to take you through an example of absorb, do, connect. And in this case, this is an example I've used before. It takes on the idea of a person designing an online class in either communications or business or new media studies, something like that. I apologize to anyone who's in these particular areas. I'm making this up. I've made this up. It probably doesn't bear any relationship to something you would actually do. The idea for this comes from some of the communication studies classes that I took during my PhD work. These kinds of things were some of the better instructors I had did these kinds of things, and I've altered them, merged them so that they fit into this absorb, do, connect model for illustration purposes. So here's the context. In this case, our instructor is designing an online class, and let's say it's a business class, or maybe it's a business communications class merged with social media. The class has two outcomes. The class has lots of outcomes, but the two outcomes the instructor wants to focus on in this unit of study are these. Work effectively in groups, so each student or students must demonstrate the ability to work effectively in groups. And two, develop strategies for dealing with customer relationships. Here's an overview of how this instructor is going to do it. First, a bridge activity, an activity that introduces the activity or the concepts. Next, an absorb activity set with a reading combined with a learning check style of quiz. Then a do assignment, a do active learning option, and then a connect assignment with a share so that students can communicate about the learning that they've done and connect it to the real world. So here's the connect, the bridge. The unit, the topic, starts out with the United Breaks Guitars video. If you have not seen this video, it's still on YouTube. Go check it out. It's hilarious and effective. It was quite a few years ago. It was a professional musician, small-time musician, traveling by air to gigs all over the country. One particular situation, case, he was traveling, he looked out the window and he sees baggage handlers throwing his guitar cases around. Predictably, when he gets to his destination, one of his guitars is broken and he takes it to customer service and they won't do anything for him. They say, sorry, not guaranteed, not insured, your problem, they weren't packaged right, and so on. And he's saying, but I saw the handlers mishandling the guitars. They are obviously not. Tell the story. They wouldn't give him any satisfaction. And he followed it up the chain. He went through various steps in the management ladder, and nobody would help him with the situation. Basically, he wanted his guitar replaced or repaired if possible. So what did he do? Well, he's a musician. The internet was a thing. YouTube was available, so he created a music video called United Breaks Guitars. It's really funny, worth checking out. So that introduces the topic to the students. Next, there's an absorb activity. In this case, the instructor assigns a chapter reading and a reading out of a professional periodical, all about social media and small business and how the two are connected. The instructor will then create a learning check quiz that draws 10 questions randomly from a 50-item question bank. So the question bank probably has 40 questions that were provided along with the textbook by the publisher, and 10 questions the instructor created based on the periodical reading that was assigned. The quiz is then configured to draw those randomly and only allows students 10 minutes to complete the quiz. And that way, the students have to have command of the topic. They have to actually have read it instead of just looking it up on during the test, during the quiz. The students are allowed to take the quiz up to 3 times, and they get to keep their highest grade. Next is the do part of this. The instructor creates an assignment that requires students to choose a company from a list the instructor provides. And these companies all have active social media presences. Students are required to review 1 week social media activity on at least 2 different platforms, Facebook and Twitter, or Twitter and Instagram. The instructor and the students would negotiate that and choose. The students have to identify 1 example of how the company interacted with customers and critique the example using criteria that came from the 2 readings that were in the prior activity. Next, here are 2 options for a do, kind of an active learning thing. So the instructor could create groups and then have each group create a social media customer relationship plan for a fictional small business, which would be provided by the instructor. So in our case, we'd use JetNet. You'd use the JetNet grouping tool to create groups. You then could create a discussion forum and assign students to the discussion forum in the groups, or you could even use Big Blue Button and again use the groupings to assign students to breakout rooms in Big Blue Button in which students would work to create these social media customer relationship plans. Or here's another option. The student might choose a case study from somewhere or might develop a case study of a fictional customer care situation and then require pairs of students to work together to create a social media campaign for a specific platform. Next, we have the connect activity. Here, the instructor would create a Q&A or question and answer discussion that has students search for jobs that include a customer relationship requirement in the description. Students would then be required in this Q&A forum to share the posting and then with their peers discuss how what they have learned in this set of activities would help them get the job, or how they might need to bolster additional activities in order to get the job, and then how they could succeed in that job based on what they now know about designing social media campaigns and dealing with customer care via social media. So in conclusion, by using the absorb, do, connect learning cycle, this instructor has created a learning activity that helps students work towards meeting 2 of the class outcomes, working effectively in groups and developing strategies for dealing with customer relations. Absorb, do, connect. Again, absorb is activities that introduce the topic and provide information. Do activities are those that have students apply information, practice skills, combine new information and skills with their prior learning. And then connect is about making links between what they've learned and the real world. Hope you'll use this as a way to help you design more effective online classes.